everyone. My name's Ismail and I'm the Ag Manager at Bio Gro. I'm really excited to be here today at Hort Connections and to have a pretty candid and honest discussion about soil, about organics, about our product, AgriGro, and to get insights from key people in the industry, which we've got today, as you can see up on the screen and sitting next to me, which I'll invite onto stage shortly. However, I'd like to do just a quick introduction on what we do as Bio Gro and who we are. So I'll go through this slide deck. Bio Gro has been around in the industry, predominantly in Mount Gambier, for over 50 years. Starting with humble beginnings, and on the screen you can see Hans van Schaik, from composting, from turning what other people would see as waste into product that is usable. Over the years, the business has grown substantially. Up on the screen you can see our site at Mount Gambier in Wandillo, which is actually surrounded by a lot of forestry. Right? So for us, over 400,000 tonnes of product is recovered. We use the word recovered because that's product that doesn't go to waste and is taken through our facilities to then be repurposed into industry. One of the key focuses that I've been working on over the past year is putting that product into agriculture, into horticulture specifically. For today is our focus. A lot of the people gathered today, they're in the hort industry, and there's quite a lot of exciting areas to focus in that segment. Our facilities is located in Victoria. We have two facilities, one in Dandenong South, the other in Newbridge. Essentially, we collect a lot of green waste from councils locally. That gets transported up to our site in Newbridge, where it's composted over windrows, added through water, and tested in a way that is compliant and certified organic. This product is then ready for distribution and is transported by our own fleet out into the market. We also delve into various other industries, which I won't have time to go over today because we are limited, but in our facility there in Green Wandillo, we follow a similar process. However, we deal with a lot more raw inputs. Again, as I mentioned, being close to the forestry industry, you get a higher quality product that comes in, higher quality of organic nutrient that can be then reutilised into the market. Specifically, we use this product in production nurseries, so a high grade product when you're thinking. Also in Mount Gambier, we've got a production facility for packaging, which then takes our product into a packaged market for the retail network. We have our own fleets. Now, specifically for those that aren't unaware, the bulk density of organic product tends to be a bit higher, so to fit more in the truck becomes a challenge. That's why we call them high-sided B doubles. So if you see any of these on the highway, you'll know they're high-sided B doubles that can transport the maximum amount of product around the country. We have investment in front-end loaders, which for me personally, I've been in fertilizers for a long time. I've never seen as many front-end loaders as I did when I first visited Mount Gambier. It was quite impressive. Our state-of-the-art packaging line, which is in Newbridge facilities. So if you are interested in understanding more about us and more about Bio Gro, please approach us. We also have a stand over at the other side, 3738. Please approach us and we can speak in more detail. Now, our products, again, focusing on bringing biology back to the soil, and I'll go over this briefly because essentially we want to leave space for our panel discussion today to focus on these areas. And there's various segments which we can actually put these products into, and that's what we want to talk about today. So as we know, there's various challenges in our industry, and this year again that was highlighted with supply constraints of general fertilizers. Now, our products and organics in general, I believe there's a stigma against people who compost. There's a difference between a quality composter and people that obviously do it in their backyard. Not that there's anything wrong with that. However, when product is sold into the commercial market, there really is that stigma to retain that high value product, right? So that's also a commercial challenge. However, in times that we've just gone past, with fertilizer still being an issue, people are looking for alternatives. And I think that's really bringing a spotlight to our industry and potentially for what we can use. Our product, AgriGro, is, if I say so lightly, doing wonders in our industry, right? So essentially this is the core of our range and the core of what we sell. So when we think ag, we think AgriGro, and we are utilising this product in irrigated pastures, in potatoes, in onions, and this is the raw base of our product that essentially comes from you throwing your green waste in the bin from councils, from the locals, and we turn that into a product that's absolutely usable in agriculture. So the key discussion points that we'll go over in our panel today is looking at that soil biology in more detail. What does this look like commercially on farm? What are the challenges some of the farmers are facing? What the uptake has been like? We've got experts on biostimulants and what the future of Australian agriculture and horticulture looks like with the integration of organics. So please, as you're listening to our panel discussions, please formulate some questions or ideas that you can then bring to us if we have time on stage, if not later on at our stand. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panel. Please give a warm welcome to Heinrich van der Westhuizen from Campbell's Fertilisers. If you want to join me up on the stage, Matt Arthurson from RJ Associates, and Shane Phillips from BioCentral Laboratories. So welcome, gentlemen. If you want, we'll start from the top and you can all just give a brief introduction on who you are, what you've sort of been working with. We can sort of start with Heinrich and sort of make our way down to meet our crowd today. Heinrich.
Thanks, Ismail. Can everyone hear me? Hello? Okay, there it is. Thanks, so Heinrich van der Westhuizen. Thanks, Ismail, Bio Gro for putting this together. I'm a product manager in Campbell's Fertilizer for the biostimulant range, which is mainly coming from Agro now, Syngenta Biologicals. My past has been an agronomist for the last about 30 years, starting in South Africa and for about 18 years in Australia, where I spent most of my time in the southeast of South Australia, looking mainly after onions, potatoes, vineyards, hydroponics. Over there you do pretty much a bit of everything. In agronomy, my philosophy is to try, or what I've been working for many years is on trying to bridge the divide between conventional farming and sustainable farming, biologicals. Trying to push things, it's hard just to change everything over, but to find the middle way where we can slowly push towards a more sustainable future and using less of the, so bridging that divide is it's a big part of what we're doing. Yeah, it's a privilege to be here today with Matt and Shane, and looking forward to the discussion. Thanks, Ismail.
Yeah, I'm Matt Arthurson. I'm from Mount Gambier in the lower southeast of South Australia. So I'm a consultant down there, mainly working through potatoes, onions, a bit of maize, and then dairy and beef and sheep pastures as well. So that's where my base is in the agronomy side of things. I've recently gone out on my own to do my own consultancy work because I saw a need there that there was no sort of independent voice in the region, that people were looking for those different, I guess, opportunities and different inputs, and that's where we've sort of looked at with Bio Gro, getting these products out into the marketplace and putting that forward for the agricultural system down there.
My name's Shane. I'm a chemist microbiologist by trade, and was doing work for BioCentral and was doing a postgrad in microbiomes of roots and how that affects plant growth and development, making plants more salt resistant and more fertiliser efficient. And we've been working in selective breeding and extraction of certain species that will do other things in plant growth. So it's a bit of a, I think, a retirement hobby, I guess, because I can't fix cars and I can't do other stuff. So I've sort of figured out I can read books, so I've gone down that pathway.
Yep, got you. Good on you, Shane. So I think, as you can see, very interesting panel session we're going to have today. And I think the first question I'd sort of like to throw to the group, and maybe Heinrich, you can sort of jump into this one if you want, but soil is essentially everything, right? Obviously, in different circumstances, in protected cropping, in hydroponics, it's slightly different in terms of grower practices. But for the vast majority of what we're doing here in Australia, we're doing this on land, and soil is essentially the key for that. And in your perspective, what's our soils like at the moment, and what is the key focus from a retail distribution point of view?
Ismail, yeah, good question. Yeah, definitely. Soil is where, I mean, when we look as an agronomist or whoever look at a crop, we tend to look at the top, and that's one thing that my dad, who was a biology teacher and a scientist and a grower, teach me. You start in the soil. That's where you start digging. That's where the magic happens. The state of our soils in general, very, very poor. It is. We have a long way to go. And the approach, I'd say, is to look, we need to look almost at soil. I always use the analogy of we need to look at it as a living city. Of course, you know, the soil, that's basically the framework. But then the carbons, that's where it's all built about. Now, carbons, it's anything from sugar to diamonds, you know. Simple sugars burn easy, but diamonds, good on a ring, not good in the soil. But come back to the city analogy, it's like different carbons, different roles. Compost, infrastructure, that's the roads, the line, the railway lines, that's the basic, that's going to be the mass carbon. We need to chase that higher. They say good soil is 3% carbon plus. I think a lot of our soils, I don't know, probably differs, you know, in Mali where we worked, under 1%, you know, it's a long way to go. So that's where we need to start and look at. Then there's, of course, things like your humic and fulvic acids. The humic acids, that's the pantry. They hold the nutrients. Your biology, they are the workers. You know, you have the trichodermas, they are the army, the defenders, they protect from disease. There's the mycorrhizas, they help with nutrient efficacy. Then we have things like biochar. They are where the biology lives. That's where you host your biology. So we need to look, so the success, so which one's going to be the magic one? There's not a magic one, there's not a magic product. I believe the success is the compounding effect of getting many things wrong. Success is ticking all these boxes, and there's not a magic thing that stands out, that's the magic fix. But that's how we're going to improve soil health, definitely getting.
Yeah, and another thing that you've been focusing on quite recently is obviously the biostimulants, right? So what's the relation there between soil health and microbial activity, and pulling that back to what's happening with biostimulants and where you see the market's going? Because essentially what we sort of want to focus on, what we think the solution is going back to basics, right? Commercially, we've here at this event where there's lots and lots of vendors all looking for the same solution, but the foundation, as you say, of that is the soil. So what sort of trends are you seeing with some of those biostimulants in the market?
We're seeing definitely biostimulants is probably the field where we see the biggest growth. And if we go back to the city analogy, and that's probably where we see there's a lot of still misunderstanding around biostimulants and where they all fit in. I always want to put them into two categories. Now, if we talk biostimulants, most of us will think seaweeds, seaweed, of course, it's popular because it's easy to access. They normally loaded with superpowers. You know, if they are plant, they live in the oceans. They have a lot of superpowers that give them the ability, and by extracting that abilities, we can take the superpowers to our crops. But you can put them in two categories. There's the biostimulant or the seaweed or whatever plant extract that you can use for the soil. They are more like a food resource, because what you get there is like your polysaccharides and your microbiome. That's the workers, of course, that makes everything happen. As is what I said before. They need two things. They need sugars and amino acids, and the seaweed will give you the polysaccharides, which is a complex sugar, which they will then. It's a long-term food that will break down to monosaccharides and polysaccharides to provide energy, and then you have your amino acids to feed the biology. The second part of biostimulants is what's focusing on the plant, and that's where a lot of the Villagra or Syngenta biological. So it's you have what's happening at the root phase, but they are targeted, say for instance, at stress, but applied specifically to the crop. So they are made for the plant. So with biostimulants, the go is, while you can still you can get a lot of things right by looking after your carbons, but you can still get major stress events, or your crop wants more color or something, and that's to do with what we call the secondary metabolites, which is basically what a tiny substance that the plant produce only on demand, but using them specifically at the right stage where you need it. So Future is a very targeted approach.
Yeah, and I think you've touched on a few things there, and I think I'll be interested in your thoughts, Shane, as well on the soil microbiome. But from, I guess, a more practical farming aspect yourself, Matt, like what's your experience at the moment? How has the perception been in terms of organics? Have you had some successes, some failures? You know, going off on your own at the moment and doing your own consulting, what are you seeing out there in the market at the moment?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting sort of little period. Probably, if we go back probably to before COVID, I guess, like all that insecurity around the world, it's sort of, I guess that's when I really noticed that people were looking at other options. And it's sort of gradually grown from there. I guess we're looking at now the war in the Middle East, that's turned things upside down again, and you're looking at things that we need to potentially have in our own backyard, so that we've got that security of being able to get it when we need it. And obviously we're such a big country and such a diverse amount of different crops and I guess crops that are grown in the region, and especially up here in Adelaide, down in the southeast. It's a massive diversity, but what can we actually use that's going to touch a lot of bases? And that's where we're finding that the organics are coming into their own. We know that there's thousands of products probably in this room at the moment, but is there a product that's actually going to touch a lot more bases and fix a lot more problems with one application than just fine-tuning and really pinpointing, and when it may not be the actual issue that we're seeing? So.
And like I said, I mean, at the start of this conversation, I sort of said, I think there's a stigma towards composting and products. And, you know, it's just a cheap product that you put out. That can be from feedlots, it can be from other areas. But in your experience, is that a real thing? I mean, how do you get people to, I guess, try to use more organics into their program, or are they coming to you with those requirements when they're saying, look, we need to build our organic matter up, where, you know, our topsoil is not as healthy as it used to be because we're obviously depleting a lot of that? What's those sort of things at the moment?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of both. You've got people coming towards you to see what they can do, and obviously as industry people, we're sort of probably Shane and Heinrich are on the forefront of that sort of thing. It's my job to sort of put it into place, I guess, with the farmer. but it's also, there's times when certain things we don't, you might advise them not to use it because it's probably not the best thing for the farmer. And then, lost my train of thought a bit there, sorry.
No, that's
Sorry,
okay,
Liz.
mate. And that's fine, but I really think it's the longer term success or the use of, and maybe the lack thereof, of really focused industry research in that field. So we all know that the more organic matter we put on the ground, the better our soil is going to be. But we're not actually doing that.
Yeah,
right? So,
and I guess the other thing with the organics and application of it in certain situations, there's probably not the data there to support it as well. So it makes it difficult to make a decision around that. And the data that is there is quite research heavy, so there's quite a lot to dig through to get the actual sort of information that you require or you want. Yeah.
Shane, you're a bit quiet there, mate, and I know that's not you. So, what do you have to sort of say on from your perspective and your experience, mate?
I probably really got into the microbiology side of things. I went to a conference in Mexico quite a few years ago, and one of the outcomes was the role of glyphosate on microbiomes. So I came back to our lab and started breeding stuff up and looking at the impact on speciation. And so nothing ever just works by itself. So we started seeing this wipe out of species. And of course the only thing I've got left are pathogens. So the things I want in the system are a consequence of fatality. So I had a group of 7 growers we worked quite closely with in inoculating seed in dryland environments. And one of the growers said, "Oh, what's a one-line sentence?" I said, "It works." So I said, the coating of seed biologically works in the mallee. We presented last year at Hort Connections on our work in lettuces, where we dipped lettuces in ferment prior to transplanting, and no tip burn from planting to cutting in 28 days. The only difference was we got inoculum onto the root system, because it's like these root bacteria will colonise roots, and it's a synergistic effect. And I think we've had soil tests, water tests done for ages. I think the biological testing is something that is still quite novel. I use AgriGro genomics up at the weight, which is fantastic. And I had to speak at a biochemistry thing the other year, and I get the data at 4 in the morning and I'm presenting at 9 o'clock. I happen to be asleep at 4 in the morning. I'm not really up till about 7 because you stay somewhere. So I get this data, I thought I'd better have a look at it. And all the microbiome, I said, your farm, did you grow this last year? This is your rotation. Yeah, and then I said to you, I said, did you grow this last year? Because the bugs are telling me, we nailed every crop in the rotation from the year before. So the bacteria that what you're growing will tell you a lot more things about what is happening. And we're in a bacterial dominated system in the mallee because our rainfall doesn't allow a lot of the beneficial fungi to survive in the long term. So we started looking at rainfall based on microbiomes. So once I'm under 375 mil rainfall country, they become bacterially dominated systems. The other thing is too, you start to see when fungal pathogens get away. What do we do to reduce fungal pathogens? And my son's doing his PhD in leaf chemistry at the moment. So we talk geek together. So it's really neat. My wife says, "You're so boring. You two get together," and we talk is geek and nerd. And what's really interesting, plants get under stress. This is fascinating. So I might digress here.
Yeah.
And the plant produces an aldehyde. The aldehyde is a fungal signal for pathogenic fungi to attack. Now we're trying to breed, I think we've nailed a couple, that we put those bacteria that use the aldehydes as a food source. The fungi doesn't realise that the signalling systems are now being removed. So it's a really neat part of research where we can link these things together, and I think it's a fascinating thing. People say to me, "Do you breed one thing?" I said, "No, I breed a multi-species microbiome," because in nature, what survives? if you're planting out a paddock, I could grow, when I was at Menindee, we were growing stuff, I could go from here to where the camera is, I've got 3 different soil types. And if I sample that, different things will prefer different soil types. So to rely on one thing alone, to me, is high risk. I need a multi-species microbiome that will cover off bases under a range of different environmental conditions. And if I keep going, so we started fermenting, and I know the girls at work got really cranky with me because I like producing pollen. And each bugs have their own smell. It's really unique. My wife was in hospital. I've gone in and said, "Oh, you've got a Pseudomonas aeruginosa infection." I said, "How neat is that?" She wasn't happy at me for suggesting that she was infected. But I said, everything has a smell to it. And the bugs produce odours and whatever, but they are really neat in what you need to do and how we produce. So we started fermenting and adding different sugar sources. And I'm going, oh my goodness, I add treacle, I end up with this thing that smells like really bad winery pom. And all I've done, if I add molasses, I ended up producing Lactobacillus acidophilus, which was great if I want to make silage, but I don't want to make silage because, well, I'm not a cow farmer, so I'm not down the southeast. So I said, what do I do with this? I don't know what to do with it because I've just got 50 million bugs of one thing. So sometimes you say I'm better off to have less to create diversity to cover my bases off.
So you're telling me you could smell if compost was good or not?
You can smell different bugs. It's like BO. I mean, if someone eats garlic, I know what you smell like. And if you eat something else, you smell different. And so you cover yourself up with deodorant, that's got a smell. And some deodorants are actually food sources for other bacteria. So you lift up your arm at the end of the day and go, oh, this is not good. So there's a whole lot of things. This world of microbiology is really exciting. And I did a demonstration at the school and I've walked up, I've got a litre of stuff. I said, smell this. And I said, what you've got in this one bottle is the entire number of bacteria of people who live on the planet. So I've got 8 million underarms in a bottle. And so you can smell this stuff and say, what does this stuff do? It's not just all negative. And it's the understanding. I think the great challenge for us as an industry is getting more people upskilled in chemistry and microbiology at a geek level who can talk to farmers about how we apply this in our farm. So we've got quite a large trial going at home where we're site-specific specificity of bacteria onto seed in the mallee. And the other year when we did, you could see the strips. It was like we put more nitrogen out because you can breed things that do jobs. And if the environment is right and the circumstances are right, they will take care of themselves within a system.
Yeah.
But every year is different. So when we do our monitoring, I write to the season. So you find at academic levels, it's not statistically significant. I said, it may be statistically significant under these circumstances, but how often do these circumstances apply? I need to balance out the odds. So each year for me when I write is the year of the chapter of the year. What happened in 2026 may not happen in 2027, but hopefully we can get the trend analysis to give the data that makes it really neat. I think it does. It makes Melissa keep paying me, so that's really important at work. Because I don't work for myself anymore. I used to, but I gave that away because I got distracted too much.
So then, if that's the case, I mean, in your eyes, what's the future hold in fermented products and the biology of, say, products like organics?
What I like with fermentation is I minimise waste. So you'll find people buy stuff and you squeeze it and you add some solute to extract off it, but I've still got waste. And I'm part Scottish, so Scots are really tight. We don't spend money. And if I've got to pay to put stuff in a bin, I don't want to pay to put stuff in a bin if I can ferment it and break it down and then sell it to you. Because I've saved myself rubbish bin costs. So the more I can break down, the more I can ferment that down to nothing in terms of soluble solids or bacterial digestates, there lies the benefit, because I can breed up bugs into really high numbers, whereas if I'm going with an extract or just a press or a solute wash, I actually don't have the microbial kick that I want in it. And then when I want to colonise roots, if those roots are totally saturated, there's no space left for pathogens. And it's a numbers game. So for Rhizoctonia, is it biologically controllable? Absolutely. These pathogens will attack the same site, and it's a numbers game. If I saturate, if it's my hand and it's covered in a glove, there's nothing that can get through. If the bacteria of the glove are over my hand, how do pathogens find a spot to infect? Because there's no longer. So it's been interesting with Bio Gro. We've been getting their compost tea, their compost waste, and I want to ferment that because it's got lots of bugs in it. How do I use that to ferment other things, to grow other things? Because I've got a stock solution of things that pong. And so if someone said to me, oh, this stuff really stinks, that's terrible. I said, no, this is really good. Because the more it pongs, the more things I've got in it. And we can get the pong analysed, and we can get it analysed for the chemical composition. What's the volatile organic compounds I've got in it? And that's a really neat thing, because I want certain VOCs, because they're also microbial stimulants. And I've got different bugs. I better stop talking.
No, not at all. I think everyone's realised that if they smell bad today, they can just check you under their arms or something like that. But I guess going back to one of the things I suppose spoke about, Matt, Arthur, Heinrich can chime in here, but one of the challenges I guess that we have is when it comes to nutrition, right? Nutrition, fertiliser, labour, and transport, the biggest costs on farm, right? So when it comes to doing those comparisons, most of the time products like ours, AgriGro, are put into the basket of nutrition, and that isn't always entirely correct, because you're not, people look at the specs of two and they're trying to do a like-for-like comparison. You have to compare apples with apples. But what are the things that, in your experience, you can see value that's not immediate, however you see longer term potential nutrient efficiencies with getting that organic matter back up in the soil? Can throw it to both of you and just sort of...
So with the longer term looking, obviously with the Bio Gro, AgriGro and that sort of things, you've got the organic matter and the biology that's also contained in the product. So I think that sort of things, in my role, I'm not trying to load the farmers up with more products, because there's that many products out there. As I said earlier, we're trying to reduce that down to a few products and potentially add the products in together to get that synergistic stack. So you've got your nutrition, your biology, your organic matter, and all the wonderful smells that Shane's talking about. But that's how I think where the on-farm reality is. We need to be sort of working out a program that's simplified, because we can't use every product every year, and each year will be different, and that's the beauty of agriculture. So.
That's right. Yeah, Matt, that's a good one. If you can get all those carbons into a product, that's great. How fertilizer basically come in, because people go like, oh, do I just go fertilizer? Do I go more compost? And as you said, Ismail, compost is not there to replace the fertilizer. You will see on the analysis what there's 2-5%. But I must say that the nutrition that is in the compost is good nutrition. It's available. It's not going anywhere. So we don't discount it. It's gold. But the fertilizer, coming back to the city analogy again, fertilizer is the field. The thing with fertilizer is, of the fertilizer we apply, a ballpark figure, particular nitrogen, we're losing like 40 to 60%. It's losses. We think, oh, what we put on there is what's going to be available to the plant. Not by a long shot. In our carbon that we have, we lose a lot, and it's volatilization, it's leaching, and that's where the compost or the carbons come in, because that's a filter. If you can increase your organic carbon in the soil from 1 to 2.5%, that loss will come back to you. Will only to your efficacy will go up to 70% plus. So it's huge. What you're retaining, because the nutrition you're putting on there, not a lot of people will cater for their losses. So you retain a lot more, and also the moisture aspect, because that's what I've seen in some of the Mallee or Southeast sands as well. You know, particularly when it gets hot, it's hard to keep up with the pivots, you know, and the fertilizer is no good if there's no moisture to help with the uptake. And if you can increase your organic carbon in your soil by 1%, it means there's different figures, it's ballpark, but we think it's about 150,000 litre per hectare on the top 30 centimeters more water that you can hold in your soil, and that is just that is gold, you know. So definitely, I think the carbon and the fertilizer go hand in hand. Big time.
So if that's the case, right, we're hearing all these benefits to these products. Why don't we have more organics out in the market?
I think it goes back to probably not having that data in front of us, and knowing how much we need to apply or things like that. And I suppose that's where it gets back to now, because we've got products that are available, that are ready to go in our own backyard. That's where the beauty of these products are, because we're obviously making them here. We don't have to rely on external companies bringing them in or anything like that. So I think that's where the uptake is going to come from now, is people are looking at those other options because of the availability of other fertilisers or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's a big thing in soil carbon going on, and I think everyone's trying to figure out how do we order it to make carbon storage. The biggest contributor to carbon levels in soils is bacterial necromass when roots die. So the more bacteria I get colonising roots, the greater the carbon increase will be. Where I was working, our farm was very heavily Amish influenced, so we all had to go to an Amish conference in the States, and so it was the bib and brace overalls, the bonnets, the whole, and that was amazing. They are the world great composters. I went to a farm. There's telephone phone poles being composted. If they could get it through a shredder, they would compost it. They had operated without fear or favour, but their whole thing was soil carbon 5%, and they were getting farms from Australian standards up to 5% soil carbon, and that was their governing factor of how they farmed. And I came back and mates said to me, said, "Oh, what do you think?" I said, "They're daylight operators in the US. There's an Amish farmer, and then there's second place, and there's a fair gap in between." So they had this really strong philosophy of what Henrik said earlier, is looking after soil. And they're probably the only people I know that can turn really bad soil into good soil. They were that talented at what they said. If you ever got some cash to spare, you want to take your wife to the States or your husband to the States, go to an Amish conference, go in a buggy, build a barn, you'd have a good time. And you will learn a heck of a lot of stuff. Because we learned a lot of stuff about farming when we went there.
Well, I think it's a good point, Shane. I'm not sure if everyone will be able to do that, but we'll certainly put it on the list. However, I think one thing to take away from that, though, is going back to basics. And, Matt said that exact same thing. He said, COVID was one of the real reasons why people were sort of hesitant and they looked at other alternatives. I guess for us being here today, one of the key things and key takeaways I'd like the audience to sort of think about is, yes, there's nutrition, right? And we understand the role of nutrition, but what are we actually doing to get that soil back to where it needs to be? And if we've got the solutions there of applying that in terms of organic matter, I think we all understand that that's a really beneficial place, and that's where the future of it needs to be as well. With that comes challenges. There are operational challenges, there are spreading cost challenges, right? So we're applying more product on the ground. There are commercial challenges. However, in order to innovate, we need to challenge these things to make it commercially viable. So my job, for example, is to say, look, we want to get more organic matter out onto farm. This is the spec it needs to be, this is the quality it needs to be, then push that back through the operations teams. And to do that collectively is the challenge. However, if we see these solutions, why are we not seeing the products more available in the field, right? So that's an interesting one, but I guess we touched on a few other things in terms of, I'll just get the audience to start thinking about any questions, and if you do have any questions, please raise your hand to the panel, and we can go across the questions because I'm conscious of time as well. But the future of this, in sort of a key word from all of the panel, what do you guys sort of think in terms of if you're going out there onto farm, and not just about organics, but one of the key things that I'm probably asking is, what are the things that you're pushing? So going back to basics, but what are the key programs look like when you're out on farm in the paddock, that we can hear from all of you?
Yeah, so probably one of the main things I'm looking at now is just the longevity of things. So we're wanting to do things that aren't going to just be a winner this year. It's going to carry through for multiple years, and this is where we need to start looking at that, the carbon, as we heard, the water holding capacity and extra nutrient holding capacity, the biology, and the facility that we're bringing in, and bringing that all together so that it's a longer term prospect, because I haven't met a farmer yet that doesn't want to improve their land. So that's probably where I'm really seeing and focusing that sort of things at the moment.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. Mike?
That's right. Now I think it's a good. I mean, to lift your carbon, your soil. It's not a once off. It takes a lot of compost or carbon, but you need to start somewhere. It's money in the bank. Start somewhere every year. Just as I say, it's start with that compounding effect. And what Shane said there before, go and look at places where they did build up the carbon. Mulgawe, a typical example with the regen. It's chalk and cheese, how it's changing. It looks like a lot of money you put in there, but what I've seen in my 30 years of agronomy, it pays back. In the end of the day, your savings on fertilizer, your savings on water, and your quality crops that you will produce it's gonna pay it back. In particular with climate that's getting more and more challenging, heat spikes and things. When you have that resilience in your soil, you will survive through it. Just keep going with it. That'll be my advice. I said the compounding effect. Do a lot of things right. They will add up to the main success. Yeah.
Thanks, Warwick. And some really interesting facts there. I mean, if we are just increasing that carbon by 1%, we can see that those benefits there definitely. Shane, anything you'd like to add, mate?
I live in the Mallee, so water when it hits $300 a meg and it's $150 a meg for me to pump it, I'm now up to $450. If I'm adding so many kilos of N is a solid. People don't think of nitrogen as a leachate. Nitrogen actually reduces my potassium and calcium levels because it washes it out. The less I can use of that, the less I can run the risk of soil decline at point source of drip application. So the more I can balance that out, the more sustainability my soil directly under my dripper will be, and the less water, if I can farm on 5-6 megs and still get it there. We had a competition a few years ago with some of the growers, and it was how many tonnes of grapes could you grow per meg of water. And some blokes, the aim was to grow 10 tonnes per meg. Now, you have varieties which can do it. And so there's growers getting up to 10 tonnes per megalitre of water. And they weren't fertigating. 90% of it was ground spread with composting, whatever, because I was reducing leachate potential. It's left of centre, but at the end of the day, what pays the bills? Profit pays bills. So it's a different way of doing jobs, which sometimes it's hard when you're in transitioning from that way of thinking, that because we've all been taught this is the way we do it, and maybe there's another way that's not wrong, it's just different.
Yeah. No, that's a really good way to sign off. I can open to any questions. If you have any questions at the moment or through our stand, like I said, 3738, we're here all day today and tomorrow. But there is some key takeaways I think there as well, and I think going back to basics, right, is one of the key things. Understanding the potential of using organics, and it's probably one of those things that, where the dollar value isn't up on the list, whatever is the most expensive in our day-to-day lives, whatever the biggest cost, if it's your car registration, whatever it is, if it's fuel, if it's fertilizer inputs, that's what's front of mind. But one thing that we should if we can take away from this session is going back to basics and actually looking at that soil potential and start thinking about what the future of this looks like. And another reason why we're here today is because we have had some really, really good results with some of these products. But we're here to put some light on it, our Hort Connections. I'd like to thank the panel session today. I've just got a few bags for them, so I'd like to say thank you to all of them. I'll hand those out now.
Show bags.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Iz.
Thanks a lot.
It's not a bag of potty mix, that's correct. But thank you all to Heinrich, to Matt, and to Shane. Thank you all for joining us today at this session as well. Like I said, if you have any questions, want to go into the minds of these guys or myself, please come and join us at our stand. And that's all we have for today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.